Hi, this is Rethik, your biology subject matter expert from MemoNeet, and welcome to the biology series once again. So, in this video, we'll be discussing about the very important aspects that is animal kingdom. We know there is five kingdom system of classification, right? So, in biological classification, we have studied what is five kingdom system of classification and what are the kingdoms that come under. So, in those five kingdom system of classification, the very last that is animal kingdom, which is the most predominant and the vast kingdom, right? So, what do you mean by animal kingdom? And what are the basic fundamental characteristics of animal kingdom? And what are the phyla which comes under the animal kingdom? Their characteristics and mode of reproduction. That is what we are going to learn in this video series. Moving on to the topic. So, how do we classify animals based on their structure? Like, in spite of their differences in structure and forms of different animals, right? So there are fundamental features which are very common, and there are even some features which are vary from individual to individual in related to their arrangement of cells, or it could be through the body symmetry or nature of column or pattern of digestion, then circulation and reproductive system. So based on these patterns, we can easily classify the animals or living organisms. So these are the features which are being used as a basis of animal classification. So level of organization. So although all the members of animal kingdom, so they are multicellular, but not all of them do not exhibit the same pattern of organization of cell. So that's why there are different level of organization. Say like the very first one is the cellular level of organization. In cellular level of organization, what happens? The cells are arranged as loose as cell aggregates, so such as sponges. So what happens is here the cell perform its individual function, independent function. Okay, so the organisms which perform the cellular level of organization are example sponges. The next one is after cellular level of organization, we have the tissue level of organization where these cells, right, they are arranged together in a more complex way. So here what happens, cell performs the same function, but they are arranged into tissues such as coulomets. So you can see here. The next one is organ level of organization. So here what happens, now these tissues, they get grouped together. They get grouped together. Okay, so after getting grouped together, they form what? A specific organ. So each organ has its own specialized function. So from Platyhelminthes and other higher phyla, you can actually see this organ level of organization. The next one is organ system level of organization. So as you can see here, what is happening? So the organs that are associated with each other and they coordinate with each other to perform a specific function. That means each organs, or organ system, they coordinate. They have their own specific physiological function. So annelida, arthropods, molluscus, echinoderms, and chordates. So they all comes under organ system of organization. Say like we have liver which is being used, kidney and liver which is used for filtration, digestive system, digestion. Then we have intestine, so for absorption, right? So heart, which is for blood circulation and pumping, then lungs for respiration. So each are different individual organs. So they are coordinated, they are being specified, associated with each other, and they perform their individual function, but in a coordinate way. So organ system itself. Okay. So in higher phyla, you will be seeing this organ system level of organization. Next, as I told, in circulation, which has actually been seen in organ system, right? So what happens, even in circulation, there are two types of circulation type. So one is open circulatory system or open type of circulation. So what happens is here, the blood is pumped out of the heart and the cells and tissues, right? They are bathed directly. Okay, so we need to specify this word here. That is, the blood is pumped out of the heart now. Remember, imagine that the blood is pumped out of the heart and whatever the cells and tissues, right? So they are bathed directly. In this way, there is an exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. That is oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. So that is normally seen in open type of circulatory system. So in closed type of circulatory system, what happens? The blood is circulated throughout a series of vessels of various diameters, such as arteries, veins, and capillaries, as you can see in the graph. So there is a specific, series of vesicles. So from where the blood is being carrying out. Okay. In general, there is a river, and the water from the river is directly being flown to the agriculture land. So that is an open circulatory system. Now there is a river. So the water from the river has been flowing to the agriculture land, but through a proper water canal system. Okay, through a proper water tube canal system. So that can be considered as closed circulatory system. This is clear. The difference between the open and closed circulatory system. Cool. So next, moving to the symmetry. What do you mean by symmetry? Dividing of the body. So what happens in symmetry? Again, there are different kinds of symmetry, say like asymmetry. So in asymmetrical organisms, what happens when any plane, right, when it passes like any plane, as you can see here, whenever a plane is passed to the central, so you cannot divide those organisms into two equal half. You will be unable to divide the organisms into two equal half because it is shapeless. Okay, so that's the reason why we will be not getting two equal half. So those animals, they all come under asymmetry. The next one is the radial symmetry. So what happens in radial symmetry is when a plane is being passed, as you can see here. So whenever a plane is passed from the central axis, from any region, okay, but it has to pass through the central axis of the body. So it divides the body into two equal identical halves. So from wherever you pass, but it will divide the body into two equal identical halves, such as like Coelenterata, Ctenophores, and echinoderms. They have this kind of body plane. Next one is bilateral symmetry. So bilateral symmetry, the name itself defines here. That is bilateral symmetry. So what happens, as you can already see in the picture, the body can be divided into two equal identical half, that is left and right half. So when a plane is passed through the center, okay, animals like annelids, arthropods, etc. So even in Coelenterata, Ctenophores, echinoderms, like you can see this kind of body plane. Clear? Now, coming to the another kind of, that is diploblastic and triploblastic mode of organization. So in animals, when I'm talking about the diploblastic animals, animals in which the cells are arranged in two embryonic layer. So that means what happens is there is an external cell will be an ectoderm and an internal cell we will be having an endoderm. So that all comes under the diploblastic animals. Example, coolidates. But so what happens in between this ectoderm and endoderm, that is in between this ectoderm and endoderm, so there is another layer. You can see here, right? There is another layer. So that is actually called as mesoglia. Okay. So which is present between this ectoderm and endoderm. So they're called as diploblastic animals. Now the another kind of animal is triploblastic animals. In triploblastic animals, what happens? Those animals in which the developing embryo has actually a three germ layer. One is normal ectoderm and endoderm we have. But between this ectoderm and endoderm, there is another layer which is actually called as mesoderm layer. Okay. So in Platyhelminthes to chordatas, the animals which comes under these phyla, right? They normally have this triploblastic animals. They are basically what? Triploblastic animals. Clear? Cool. So we need to understand what is diploblastic and triploblastic animal. Only differences in this like triploblastic animal between ectoderm and endoderm, we will be able to see the mesoglia. Whereas in the triploblastic animals, while during the embryonic development itself, we have three germ layer. Okay, one is ectoderm and endoderm, but between the ectoderm and endoderm, there is another layer which is called as mesoderm. Right. Now coming to the coulomb. So what do you mean by coulomb? Coulomb is nothing but the body cavity, guys. When I'm talking about coulomb, it is nothing but body cavity. So presence or absence of the cavity between the body, okay, and the gut wall is very important while we are concentrating on the classification. So the body cavity, which is leaned by the mesoderm, okay, that is nothing but basically what happens. So we have a body cavity which is present between the body wall and the gut wall. And based on that itself, the classification of animals is also being done, such as we have three types of coulomb. One is a coulomb, the animals in which the Acolums are nothing but the animals in which the body cavity is completely absent. Okay, so they are cool. Those animals are actually called as acoolomates. Example, Platyhelminthes. Then we have another kind of coulomb, that is pseudocoulomb, or we normally call them as false coulomates. So in some animals, what happens? The body cavity is not lineated by mesoderm layer. Instead, what happens? The mesoderm is present as a scatter. So can you see here? So what is happening here? The mesoderm layer, they have been present scattered as a pouch-like structure in between the ectoderm and endoderm. Such a body cavity is called as pseudocoulombs, and the animal which normally possess these kind of body cavity is actually called as pseudocoulomates. Example, Ascalementhes are the example. The next one is coulomates. That means the animals are true coulomb. Here, what happens? The animals which normally possess the coulomb, that is the body cavity, they are actually called as coulomates or true coulomb. Okay. Examples from Annelida to Chordata, such as Annelida, molluscus, arthropodas, echinoderms, hemichordatas, and chordates. They all comes under this coulomates. Okay, that is true coulomb body cavity. So this was all about the coulomb. Is it clear to you all? Cool. The very important thing of the classification of animal is again the segmentation. In some animals, what happens, as you can already see on the screen, the graph of the earthworm. So what happens is, what is happening here, like what you are able to observe here is the body is externally and internally divided into segments here. Okay, segments, like if this is a body, so there are certain segments and equally they have been divided into segments. Okay, in a repeated manner, at least some organs. For example, in earthworm, the body shows a pattern called as metameric segmentation. Remember this point called metameric segmentation. So what is metameric segmentation? That is the body showing a pattern, a regular pattern is actually called as metameric segmentation. And the animals which exhibit this phenomenon, right, they are called as metamerism. That phenomenon is called as what? Metamerism. So earthworm, metameric segment, metamerism. So this is what we need to remember. Whenever there is a segmentation, we are talking about the earthworm and or any other insects or any other phyla. But in earthworm, you can easily see that segmentation of the body. So that is the metameric segmentation, and the phenomenon is actually called as metamerism. This is clear? Cool. The another very important thing of the classification is presence or absence of notochord. So what is this notochord? You can see here that a notochord is actually a mesodermally derived, that is mesodermal cells. So from where they are being derived, a rod-like structure. So it is something rod-like structure which is formed on the dorsal side where during the embryonic development in some animals. So that is nothing but notochord. We need to remember the definition of notochord here. Okay. So that is, the notochord is a mesodermally derived rod-like structure which is formed on the dorsal side during the embryonic development in some animals. Like animals which are having notochord, that is presence of notochord or with notochords, are actually called as chordates, and animals which do not have the structure, that is the notochord structure, they are actually called as non-chordates, and we will study it in depth in the coming by taking some examples. Okay, so this is all the basic aspects about the animal kingdom. So if we know this all terminologies, then only we will be able to understand the characteristics of other phylum which comes under this animal kingdom. This is clear. Example, Porifera to echinoderms. Classification of animals. So phylum Porifera. Phylum Porifera are commonly called as sponges, and they are generally marine and mostly they are asymmetrical. That means they cannot be divided into any two equal halves, right? Then they are primitive multicellular animals and they have cellular level of organization. If you remember what a cellular level of organization, where cells they perform their independent function. Very important thing about this phylum Porifera are they have a water transport system or water transport or canal system. So what happens is, as you can see here, so that is water. So they normally enter through this minute spores. So those minute spores are actually called as ostia. So the water enters through the minute spores in the body wall, then through the central cavity, which is called as spongiole. Okay, this is outer part and this is inner part. So now the water enters into the central cavity, which is called a spongiole. So from where, this water goes out through what? osculum. So this is how water transportation happens in the body of the uh, porifera. So what is the use of this water transport system is this pathway of this water transport, it helps in food gathering, that is the minute particles, organisms, substances, right? They comes to the water itself. Then it also helps in the respiration and also removal of the waste. This is very important. Now, another very important thing about this phylum is we have conodocytes. So what are these conodocytes? They are also called as colar cells. They are normally lean on the spongiocole and the canal. So when coming to the digestion, as we can observe that the digestion is what? Intracellular in nature. The body is supported by the skeleton made up of spicules or spongin fibers. Then sexes, they are not separated. So since they are not separated, they follow a pattern called as hermaphrodites. What are hermaphrodites? Sexes are not separated. That is, both male and female, gametes are produced in the same parent, that is same individual. Then the sponges, they normally reproduce in two ways. One is asexual method by fragmentation and sexual method by gametes formation. Fertilization is actually internal and development is indirect, that is through the larval stage. And morphologically, the larval stage is different or distinct from the adult one. So this was all about the phylum Porifera. Examples, one is cycons, the new spongia and spongiocole are the examples. The next phylum is Coelenterata, which is commonly called as Syndria. So this is actually derived from the syndroblast or syndrosis. So what happens is there is a presence of tentacles on the body, okay, and they're actually used for anchoring or they're being used for defensive purpose or even for catching the prey. So they're mostly aquatic. Obviously, they're aquatic and mostly they're marine and free swimmers and radially symmetrical body. Okay. So coming to its tissue, radially symmetrical means yes. A plane can be passed through any part through the center. It will be divided into two equal half. So tissue level of organization can be seen and they're diploblastic. Then digestion is extracellular as well as intracellular digestion, which is very important now. And they have a central gastrovascular cavity, okay, with a single opening. That is only single opening of mouth or stomach. And these are the examples. Some of the Syndrias, for example, corals, they have a skeleton composed of calcium carbonate. Very important. This might have asked in many ways in the NEET in a trickiest way. So they have a skeleton composed of calcium carbonate and Syndriates they exhibit basically two body form. One is polyp and medusa. This is polyp and this is medusa. So what is this? See, they actually form alternation of generation, that is metagenesis. What happens in alternation of generation is this polyp, so it reproduce or it forms what the medusa through asexual, and the medusa, it gives what or it forms the polyp through sexual mode of reproduction. So this is how happens in the alternation of generation. So this is clear. So what happens is the polyp, it is going to form the medusa through asexual mode of reproduction, whereas this adult medusa, it is going to form the polyp, which is through the sexual mode of reproduction, right? The next phyla is phylum Ctenophora. Coming to the phylum Ctenophora, so as you can see here, they are commonly called as sea walnuts and coombe jelly. So they are exclusively, obviously, they are marine and they are radially symmetrical. Diploblastic organization can be seen here. And they are basically diploblastic organisms with tissue level of organization, right? So you can see here the radiants. So here what happens is the body bears uh, 8 external rows of ciliated comb plates, which normally helps in the locomotion. And coming to its digestion is both extracellular and intracellular mode of digestion. Then it also gives what? Bioluminescence, that means a property of a living organism to emit the light. Sexes are not separated, so reproduction takes place only by a sexual mean. Okay, and fertilization is external with indirect development. And these are the examples for this phylum. This was all about basic concepts. And yeah, in the coming video, we'll be discussing even more about the remaining phylum. Okay, so this was all about the animal kingdom, my dears. So one thing is, if you really do have any doubts, you can feel free to reach me out through the comment section in the YouTube, or else you can also reach me out through the Telegram channel. So very most important thing is we still have only 8 months left. So I'll try to cover the entire 11th and 12th chapters, okay, very in a very simplest way, both in theory aspects as well as competitive aspects. So stay tuned. And very important thing is revision and simultaneous practice is really very important. So you can go for online or offline series also. If you are feeling difficulty to choose which is better, you can actually choose the Brahmastra test series, which is available both in online as well as offline. So you can also get all the information in the description regarding the Brahmastra test series. Not only that, if you want to practice more number of MCQs, which is 100% NTA based pattern of 2025, then you can also prefer this MemoNeet Allied plan, where you have more than 15,000 questions from the biology series, and the same with chemistry and physics. So you can also use that. And there are also very good notes in the app also. So make sure that you guys utilize it well. Thank you.